Where'd everybody be? There's one somebody out there. Hey, Ori. Hey, Princess. I tried to call you girls on my way home. Nobody answered the phone. Oh, it's cold in here. Hey, Vinci Lou Who, how are you?
Good appetite.
I figured since we got a biker book tonight, we'll listen to some blues. Whiskey and blues. I know it, money. That's true. So, guess where I'm going on vacation next week? Florida. Can't believe it. For Big Daddy's 70th birthday, I'm going to Florida. Mexico Beach. Yep. And I should find out either tonight or tomorrow, but I may have a place, Mexico Beach, and maybe staying at a place on the beach. He doesn't know that, though. I'm keeping that a secret. It's a house or a condo or something. Apparently, this place is like 5 minutes from my boss, and he knows. No, because I'm going for peace and quiet. Or you ain't coming because your mouth can't be. But there's another lady that we work with apparently has a house or a condo or something down there. And he's talking to her to see if she'll rent it out to us. No, because then you can't come without your Twin Peaks, whatever, kids there. And I'm going for some freaking peace and quiet. Coming back Wednesday in time for the... But yeah. I'm out of here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started before we run out, because I've been on here 6 minutes, almost 7 minutes. So you can go look for everybody. I don't know where everybody's at. CJ is in Colorado, so she may be at work still or getting the kids fed or husband fed or whatever. So she may not make it on. I don't know. There's a third person on here and I can't see who it is, but go ahead and get started and you can always send this off to CJ. CJ, thank you so much for letting me read this. I appreciate it, girlfriend. All right. Viper, Nighthawks MC Book 1. Chapter 1, Heat of the Night. Hot Louisiana wind whipped in the face as I flew down the highway. A glance up told me the moon was full and we'd probably be very busy tonight. Damn werewolves. I steered my Harley toward the water, needing to be alone and think before the night started. I had big news for my men, and I had to contemplate how to tell them. Shadow could hold down the clubhouse while I mulled over my decision. I reached Cross Lake fairly quickly and parked my bike in the lot. Patting my pants to ensure my knife was in my pocket and my revolver tucked in tight, I strolled toward the dock and stopped at the edge, where it stretched out onto the lake. The water was very still, like a sheet of glass. The moon, a perfectly round white ball, reflected on its surface. I briefly wondered what Cross Lake looked like first thing in the morning with the orange sun rising behind it. I hadn't lived here the last time I'd seen a sunrise. No, I'd been in California where I was born and raised. I don't remember my last sunrise, but I do remember my last sunset. It was 1987. Sweet swells today, dude. I grinned and high-fived my best friend, Andy. We'd graduated high school together 12 years prior and pretty much had been living as beach bums since. We surfed, worked menial jobs, and practically never left Huntington Beach. As we sat in nothing but swim trunks with our surfboards by our sides, we reminisced about how awesome the waves had been that day, watching the large orange balls sink below the Pacific Ocean's horizon. I flicked my sand-splattered blonde hair to the side. It had been permanently bleached by the sun, even though by then a few gray hairs had begun popping through. We sat in silence until the dark descended and a blanket of stars began to break through the dark navy sky. Andy got up and brushed sand from his shorts. Okay, man, gotta get ready for work. Spring break bitch is gonna keep us busy tonight. I chuckled and Andy tended bar at a local nightclub. Have fun. Stop by if you're not busy, he said, clapping me on the shoulder before shuffling off in the sand to head to his car, his surfboard under his arm. The sound of an approaching motorcycle bolted me out of my memory, and I turned my head to see one of my club members come rumbling up on his Harley. He killed the engine and dismounted his bike before heading toward me. I furrowed my brow, my hands on my hips. This better be a fucking emergency. He shrugged and grinned at me. I couldn't see his eyes behind the sunglasses he never took off. Sorta. I sighed and looked out at the water, wondering how he'd found me. This was my so-called happy place, and now I would have to find a new one. What is it, Kova? This lake is a good place to unwind. A buddy of mine likes to come fishing out here when he wants to be alone. I know the feeling, I replied dryly. How did you find me anyway? Kova lifted one shoulder and let it fall. I have my ways. You're an annoying ass. You know that? I replied. Well, we've got a wolf on the loose near the clubhouse. He looked up at the full moon. I told the guys to inform you, but they said you weren't there. You didn't answer your cell, so I tracked you down. I pulled my phone from my pocket and swore. It's off. I powered it back on and repocketed it. I figured. Anyway, Venom won't let me kill him. He was mid-shift when we got the call. It was cute, him trying to bark orders at me from inside his cage. I sighed and ran a hand down my face. Fucking wolf. Should have never let one in the Nighthawks. Should have kept it vampires only. And one human vampire hybrid, Kova added, throwing me a cheesy smile that looked so out of place against his dark hair and sleeves of tattoos. I chuckled and turned my head to look out over the water. You're lucky I didn't kill you the night I found you sleazing around my clubhouse. You almost wrecked my baby, though. Good thing my buddy's a bike mechanic, or I would have sent you the bill. I raked a hand through my hair. Apprehend the wolf, lock him up, and I'll be back shortly. If Venom has an issue, he can take it up with me. 10-4. Kova saluted me like an idiot and then got back on his bike and left. I pulled my phone from my pocket to see I'd missed 3 calls and 5 texts while it had been off. I had a love-hate relationship with this damn device. Don't we all? Hey, Miss Surly. I looked up over the calmness of the lake and wanted to throw the phone into it and never have to deal with one again. I remembered what it was like to not be burdened with having to be on call all the time. But as the leader of the Nighthawks, I had a responsibility to my men, to my team. And that meant always being available for emergencies, which seemed like we had one every fucking day. I stared at the lake and blew out of breath. Emergencies I brought on myself and my men. I'd chosen the life of a hunter and now had a couple of dozen other hunters by my side. Mostly a band of misfits who'd found a place to belong by joining the Nighthawks. Supernatural creatures with nowhere to go after becoming what they now were. A low growl from behind me bolted me from my thoughts. My silver knife was in my hand faster than I could blink as I spun around. A large gray wolf paced back and forth 20 feet from me, blocking my exit to the parking lot. I narrowed my eyes at the beast. What do you want? Of course, it didn't answer me since they couldn't speak aloud in their wolf form. It could understand me, though. That much I knew. It just stared at me as it prowled. I waved my knife as I walked closer to it. Are you lost, or do you have a death wish? As I saw now that it was a male, he stopped at my warning and seemed to narrow his eyes at me. Shoot, I said, getting more annoyed with each passing minute. You're going to get out of my way, and I'm going to get on my bike and go. We'll both leave here unscathed and alive. Deal? I didn't want to kill the creature, since we only did that when we caught them threatening or harming humans or us. But I wasn't going to let this fucker get me hurt either. My cushion's not sitting right. The wolf didn't move, so I shrugged. All right, man, if this is the hill you want to die on. I threw the dagger toward his torso to scare him, and it missed by centimeters as he bounded out of the way at the last second, bolting away into the night. At least he wasn't going to be a problem to me now. I used vampire speed to bolt to my bike, picking up my beloved knife on the way. The thing was not only made of pure silver, it had sentimental value as well. I tucked the knife into the leg pocket of my trousers and got on my bike. Before taking off, I looked around and saw that everything was quiet. Normally, those bastards traveled in packs, so I wondered if this one was just lost. Stupid fucking wolves. Chapter 2. Den of Vipers. I smelled the wolf blood the minute I killed the engine. Our clubhouse sat in the middle of Warehouse District in downtown Shreveport, and I had never regretted the decision to establish it here. It was deathly quiet at night, so we could hear if anyone or anything approached. I'd bought the entire building and had used a fictitious LLC to keep the locals out of my business. As far as they knew, we simply manufactured motorcycle parts and repaired bikes here. Nothing more, nothing less. And it wasn't a complete fabrication. We did work on our bikes here. We just got the parts from somewhere else. The back end of the clubhouse had a full mechanics shop. I was never interested in learning how to repair them. But we had a couple of guys and one girl who were pros. In their spare time, they bought and flipped bikes for profit. Wrinkling my nose at the stench of wolf blood, I plugged the code into the door and went inside. The familiar beeping sound echoed throughout the space, indicating someone had come through the door. Little added security never hurt. I stalked through the main open space of the warehouse and looked around. The upstairs catwalk area was clear and quiet, but straight ahead, where we kept 3 cages we referred to as cells, I saw Phoenix, Shadow, Face, and Kova standing in front of one of 2 occupied ones. A large brown wolf lay panting on the cement floor, blood leaking from its left hindquarter. I could still smell the gunpowder. "You shot it?" I asked as I approached. Shadow lifted a shoulder and let it fall. It was either, let me get the right voice there, Shadow. It was either him or me. I stared at the creature, and it stared back at me. It isn't supposed to shift back into a human. Isn't it supposed to shift back into a human when it's hurt? Face asked. Well, that's 61 highway. Not necessarily. Only if, Phoenix answered, only if they're dying. Otherwise, he's stuck like that until the moon goes away and morning comes. I wrinkled my nose. Are we just going to let him bleed out like that? Kova chuckled. You going to go in there and tend to his wound? It's not like he can do it himself if we throw him some medical supplies. No opposable thumbs. He wiggled both of his thumbs and grinned. Well, at least sedate the fucker. Then maybe we can see what we're working with when morning comes, I said. On it, Shadow said, heading toward the offices where we kept a small armory of weapons and other supplies. The wolf woofed at me once at me. Then the other wolf in the cage next to it also woofed. I looked at Venom in his wolf form. You can tell me what he said when morning comes. Now be a good little nighthawk and go to sleep. He woofed again, and I just shook my head. I hated having to lock him up every full moon, but he understood. He seemed to have a handle on his wolf in that form, but he was fairly new to the club, and I didn't trust him fully yet. In my experience, werewolves were unpredictable and dangerous, even in their human form. I'd taken a chance on Venom because he'd proved himself by saving Phoenix's life. Plus, having a wolf in the club could be to our advantage. For instance, right now, wolves had a telepathy of sorts. Had a telepathy of sorts. The way they communicated in their beast form. A pop and then a yelp caught my attention as I watched the dart enter the brown wolf's neck area. He whimpered a few times and then went quiet, lying on its side. It looked dead, but I could see its stomach rising and falling as it slept. Fucking wolves, Shadow said, slowly entering the cell to tie a bandage around the now sleeping wolf's leg. He was rewarded by an angry bark from Venom. I looked at Phoenix and Kova. Get him some food and water. We're not savages. They headed toward the kitchen area, and I looked at Shadow. What happened? He jetted his bearded chin toward the creature. I went to take the fucking trash out, and this mutt attacked me. Jumped out from behind the dumpster. Thank fuck I had my piece on me. He patted his right hip where the pistol hid under his leather jacket. Doesn't make sense, I said. They don't usually attack us because they know if they bite us, it's not going to taste very good. That was an understatement. It downright burned their tongues and throats. I dragged it in here, and the guys helped me throw it in there. I looked at the trail of smeared blood leading from the front door to the cell. Well, these things are getting braver. I was at the lake earlier, and one seemed to appear out of nowhere. It didn't attack, but just kind of stared at me. I had to throw my knife at it to get it to move along. I hate that we can't communicate with them while they're like this. At least it's only once a month that we have to deal with them, Kova said, opening Venom's cell door and setting down 2 big bowls. The wolf immediately dug into the raw steak, making disgusting slurping and snorting sounds as Kova closed the cell door and threw the bolt closed at the top of the cage. Get the blood cleaned up and let's meet for church, I said, jutting my thumb toward the red smears as I headed to my office. Own it, Phoenix replied, heading toward the kitchen. Before I reached my office, I stopped and popped my head into the mechanic shop. There were 2 bikes up on lifts and another lay in pieces on the floor. Dash turned his head when he heard the door open. What's up, boss? I hated when they called me that, but I couldn't get them to stop, so I mostly just ignored them. Anything going on? I asked. He shook his head, his long ponytail sliding along his t-shirt as he turned back to the bike he was working on. The pieces were on a red cloth spread out on the metal table. He looked like he was putting together a metal jigsaw puzzle. Nothing, he replied. Church in 5, I said, looking at the other two, a man and a woman sitting around drinking coffee. I left the shop and made a pit stop for my office before heading to the chapel. It was actually more like a bar, but it was the only place in the warehouse that could seat us all for church, so it had been dubbed the chapel. The fact that fully stocked bars took up the length of 2 walls, and the irony wasn't lost on me. Seeing that most of the group was already seated, I headed toward one of the bars and pulled out a wine bottle before yanking the cork out. I lifted the glass and poured the bottle's thick, bloody contents into a glass, put the bottle back, and headed to the front of the room, front of the class. After a sip, I set the glass down on the podium and opened up my notebook I'd retrieved from my office. Face told me he could put an app on my cell phone where I could take notes, but I preferred handwriting them. Technology, not my favorite thing. I pounded the gavel and the room went quiet. Before I spoke, I looked out at the group of vampires who made up the Nighthawks and felt a little bit of pride for the men and women who had chosen to follow me and help me keep the streets of Shreveport relatively clean. I hoped the bombshell I was about to drop on them would be taken well. Clearing my throat unnecessarily, I thanked them for being here and then said, I have some news. You could hear a pin drop now as they all stared at me in rapt attention. Y'all listening out there? I figured she was probably watching, but I know this is her getting home time, or most people's getting home time where she's at. So, hey, CJ. I've decided to move our main operation to New Orleans. Whispers and murmurs sounded throughout the room. Few hands in the air like school children wanting to be called on. I held up my hand. Let me finish. All your questions will be answered. Took a gulp of my bloody cocktail and set the glass down. The move will take place over the next 6 months. This clubhouse will stay here, and I'll be asking for 3 volunteers to stay behind to run it and to monitor the activity in Shreveport. I've already secured a location twice the size for a fixed shop, offices, an armory, living quarters, and detention cells. There's an adjacent bar nightclub I've purchased for extra income. I'm upping our recruiting efforts for more vamps to help us run the new place, as the dozen or so of us won't be enough. I want to emphasize that recruiting means willing participants. I will not, under any circumstances, tolerate turning any humans against their will. We will accept both men and women as long as they can pass the initiation process. All prospects will go through me. My lieutenants already know about these plans, and they will be my right hand men in completing this transition. Without raising his hand, Dash asked, "Can I ask why?" I nodded. The answer is simple. The supernatural crime rate is quadruple there than it is here. Plus, the rebel riders already take care of most of it here in Shreveport. A fairly new member of our club, Jules, snorted. "Those old coots! Humans? They won't last long." I glared at her. "Yes, but for now, they take care of business. They're also recruiting younger members." "Don't underestimate them," COVID added. "They kick ass." He grinned, his sunglasses reflecting the lights from the ceiling. He took a swig from his beer. Lucky bastard was a human vampire hybrid and could not only go in the sun, but could catch a good buzz from booze. I hadn't been drunk since 1987. Chapter 3, Heartache Tonight, Huntington Beach, California, 1987. The crash of waves in my ears was deafening as I sat and watched the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. My buddy Andy and I had been surfing most of the day, and I was pretty exhausted. He'd left to go get ready for his job bartending at a local rowdy bar on the beach. I, too, worked a menial job in the surf shop, usually a few days a week, so I could make my half of the rent I shared with another guy who I rarely saw. I realized at 30 years old, I should probably grow up and get a real job, or even try to go to college, but I just didn't care that much, to be honest. All I wanted to do was surf and party, and I had my deceased parents' inheritance I was draining to do it. I sat there a few minutes longer until I started to get cold. Nights in California didn't stay as warm as the days. I stood and picked up my board, slid on my flip-flops, t-shirt, and Baja hoodie, and headed toward the main street that lined the beach. I didn't have a car. I walked everywhere. I strode quietly, looking at the retail shops that were closing up for the night. The fun part of the beach would be a couple of streets over where the bars and clubs were. I thought about going to hang out with Andy while he worked, but decided I was feeling tired from all the sun and surfing and thought a beer and some TV sounded better. I had to work tomorrow anyway. As I rounded the corner to my apartment, something hard smashed into my face. I dropped my board and bellowed out in pain as I fell to the ground. Before I could blink or cry out again, I was flat on my back. A frighteningly beautiful woman on top straddling me, pinning my arms to my sides. I balled up my fist. "What the fuck? Get off!" She slapped me across the face. "Shh." She put a blood red nail to her lips. Pissed as hell, I tried bucking her off, but she was freakishly strong. Man, I'm having problems with some of these words tonight. Jackie! I slowly stopped resisting because of the look in her eyes. It was calming me somehow. That calm was short-lived, though, because after her eyes turned complete black like a demon, she opened her mouth and I saw a set of very sharp fangs. My eyes widened, and before I could yell, she slammed her face down to my neck and bit into me hard. My screams were muffled as she smashed her hand down on my mouth while she ravaged my neck. Relaxation began to overtake my senses, and when she removed her hand from my mouth, I lacked the energy to do anything but whimper and blink, trying to keep my eyes open. Eventually, the darkness won, taking me under its blanket and putting me to sleep. The throbbing in my head woke me. I blinked my eyes open and realized I most certainly was not in my room back in my dinky apartment. How much did I have to drink and whose bed did I wind up in? Groaning, I went to get up to use the bathroom out of habit, but realized I couldn't. Seeing my right and then my left arm tied with rope to the bed, I lay alone on and then my left arm tied with rope to the bed I lay on alone on made me wake up real fast. I yanked at my restraints and sat up. Thankful my feet weren't restrained as well. I wore nothing but a loose pair of dark blue pajama bottoms that certainly weren't mine. Looking around the large room, I could see Victorian-era decor, including the bed I was on. It was a four-poster with gaudy bedclothes matching the rest of the furniture. I blinked again in disbelief, trying hard to remember the last thing that had happened before I went to sleep. Think, I muttered to myself. I suddenly felt a huge wave of nausea overtake me. Since I couldn't get up to use the bathroom, I leaned my head over to the side of the bed the best I could and emptied the contents of my stomach. Not only was I shocked to see a large metal bowl on the floor that had caught my spew of sickness, but even more shocking was the fact that my vomit was mostly red liquid. What the? I whimpered, tasting the coppery regurgitated blood. I sat back up and used my bare shoulder to wipe my mouth off. Ugh, I need some water. So thirsty. I closed my eyes and tried to remember. Surfing with Andy, heading home. But I didn't make it home, did I? My eyes slammed open. That Halloween costume bitch, she had attacked me in the alley behind my apartment. Holy shit. Unable to get my hand to my neck to feel if I still had her bite marks on me, I began to thrash violently, trying to get the rope to snap. I had to get the hell out of here. What kind of weird shit was this chick into? I wasn't sticking around to find out. I was already vomiting blood, for God's sake. I clearly needed medical attention. Knowing that crying out for help would just make her or someone else or someone worse come in here faster, I tried to find a way to free my right hand. I stared at the knot in the rope against the bedpost. It looked pretty complicated, like the ones they tied on the boat when I used to go out on my buddy's family's yacht as a teen. They tried to teach me nautical rope ties, but it was lost on me. I just wanted to sit and watch the ocean. Wished I would have paid more attention. Not that it mattered now. It would take a sharp instrument of some kind to release me. I looked around the room again. I could see a large window to my right, but I couldn't tell how big it was because it was covered by heavy velvet draperies that matched the god-awful bedspread I sat on. Hell, I didn't even know if it was a night or day at this point. I assumed morning since I'd just woken up. There was nothing I could use to break these binds. I straightened my fingers to make my hand as small as possible and tried to yank out of the binding at my wrist. But all that did was scrape the shit out of my skin and draw blood. I hissed in pain. The rope didn't give at all. I looked up to see the ropes might slide off the post at the top, so I sat up with my back to the wall and tried to slide both arms up at the same time. But the ropes would not budge an inch. After 10 minutes of trying to loosen them, I gave up. Beginning to get discouraged, my panic rose. I had to get out of here. A noise from the doorway caught my attention, and I watched as the woman and another man walked in. The man was very young and thin and wore nothing but a pair of jeans and was barefoot. I stared at him and then her. Oh, good. You're finally awake. she said with a creepy smile. I stared at her pale, flawless skin, dark, wavy hair, and freakishly light blue eyes. I'm picturing, y'all get this. Remember Two and a Half Men? Remember Rose that was always following Charlie Sheen's character around everywhere? Just kind of who I'm picturing here. I don't know why. I guess because it's on the beach. Oh, good. You're finally awake, she said with a creepy smile. I stared at her pale, flawless skin, dark, wavy hair, and freakishly light blue eyes. She was dressed like a villain from a comic book. Leather pants, boots, and tits spilling out of her tight-ass top. Why did you have me tied up in here, you crazy bitch? Let me go, I snapped. She folded her arms over her chest and grinned. No. I narrowed my eyes at her. You attacked me last night. Why did you bite me, you freak? She tilted her head back and laughed. Last night? Honey, that was 3 days ago. My eyes widened in shock and I sucked in a breath. What? What? No. Yes, she said, grinning in triumph at my shock. I looked at the man who seemed to be waiting on an order from the woman, and then back to her. What do you want? Her frightening smile got wider. Oh, honey, you're here for your own protection. What the? Protection from what? From yourself. She answered a split second before her eyes turned solid black. I gasped out loud and tried to scrabble up the bed further, but her back was already pressed tightly to the wall behind me. Why do you get on here and holler at name? No. Why didn't you say, hey, my name is, I'm here. I mean, it is my show. Nathan, turd head. Hi, baby boy. Love you too, darling. I gasped out loud and tried to scrabble up the bed further, but my back was already pressed tightly to the wall behind me. Before I could blink, she was on the bed, yanking me down flat and straddling me once more as she had that night. Get off me! I screamed, trying to buck her off once more and wondering how I could use my legs. I lifted my knee and smacked her in her backside, but it had no effect. She just continued to straddle me, staring down at me with those freaky eyes. Come here, Sam, she said, and I watched as the young man obeyed. Sam sat on the bed next to us and craned his neck to the side, almost robotically. What are you doing? I asked, mortified, as the realization came over me that she had kidnapped me for some freaky orgy she wanted to have with me and this Sam guy. Nathan, you're in timeout. That's what you get. You left the barn door open and all the varmints came in. Shh, she hissed, smoothing back my too long hair from my face. Listen to Sam's heartbeat. Close your eyes and you'll hear it. I looked at the woman, then to Sam, then back to her. No, what are you doing? Get off of me. Let me out of here. Her eyes went back. I don't know how to get him out of timeout. How long's 300 seconds? Her eyes went back to blue and an angry countenance overtook her already frighteningly stunning features. A piercing sting warmed my face as I realized she slapped me clean across the face. Shut up! Close your eyes and listen to his heartbeat, Vane. I won't ask you again. How do you know my Another slap that shut me up. I obeyed to avoid any more abuse and closed my eyes. Listen to its steady rhythm, she whispered, concentrating just to appease her so I could figure a way out. I did as I was told. Sure enough, I could hear Sam's heartbeat. Okay, now what? Do you hear it, love? She purred. Yes, I answered with a nod. Open your eyes, she commanded. When I did, Sam was sitting inches from me, his head turned to the side. I could see the blue vein throbbing in his neck and was suddenly mesmerized by it. I watched in fascination as it pulsed in rhythm with the sound of it beating in my ears. That's another thing these thick necks like mine are good for, because they gotta have long fangs to get in there to them. See, not only am I too fluffy for kidnapping, I'm too fluffy for vampires. I watched in fascination as it pulsed in rhythm with the sound of it beating in my ears. My mouth began to water, and I felt something sliding out of my gums. I opened my mouth and closed it again, rewarded by a sharp fang piercing my bottom lip. My own fang! What the hell is going on? I screamed inside, but outside I couldn't really move. Taste, Sam. Drink from him. Oh, she's demanding. Taste, Sam. Drink from him, she demanded, pushing his neck to my mouth. Oh, fuck no. But I couldn't help it. It was too hard to resist. I leaned forward and bit down into that throbbing vein. I was rewarded by a rush of sweet liquid pouring down my throat. I sucked at Sam's neck as he moaned. My dick getting hard was what drew my attention away from drinking and back to the present. The woman rubbing it through my pajama bottoms had me withdrawing my mouth from Sam's neck, shrinking back from him, and trying to kick the woman away. What the fuck did you do to me? I screamed, kicking at them both, blood dribbling down my chin. I wanted to lick it away, but then told myself that it was disgusting. What I'd just done was abhorrent, unnatural, and downright sickening. What have you done? I whispered this time. She grinned evilly at me. I'm Agnes. Welcome to my world, Van Matson. Well, Nathan was back, and then Vincey put him in timeout. She's so used to dealing with her 3 naughty little kids at home that she just decided to put to Nathan, automatically jumped in there, and she put him in timeout. I don't think 300 seconds is that long, y'all. 120 is 240. About 5 minutes. All right, last chapter. Chapter 4, Bad Company, present day. After a few hours of daytime sleep, a hot shower, and some clean, fresh clothes, I left the house I shared with Shadow and drove to the clubhouse on my hog. The night wind blew my hair back, and I sucked in a deep breath that I didn't really need to as I drove. After I parked, I put in the code and walked in, ready to start my evening. Most of us had our own places, and a few of the vampires all lived together in larger homes, but we did not keep living quarters at the clubhouse. We did keep one cot in the offices with a blanket and a pillow for emergencies, along with a couple of comfortable couches. When I started this club, I thought it best to keep personal and professional lives separate. Not that many of my men and women had lives. The Nighthawks were their only family for most, me included. My parents had died in a boating accident long before I was even turned, and the trust fund they'd left their only child was how I was able to afford this long life I led. I had lucked out and found an awesome investment banker at Andy's bar one night who'd been able to double the $1 million they'd left me. It had since quadrupled thanks to the stocks I'd learned to invest in, and hence how I afforded to pay cash for my houses, vehicles, and the Nighthawks' needs. I headed straight to the cage where a man dressed in athletic shorts sat. He was scrawny, dirty, and was currently munching on a sandwich. I looked at the cell next to his to see it empty. The door opened. I looked back at the wolf who stared up at me with frightened eyes, a touch of defiance behind his fear as he chewed his dinner. I smelled him before he spoke. "Hey, boss." Clapping Venom on the shoulder of his white t-shirt, I said, "What's the good word?" He was also eating a sandwich and used it to point at the thin man in the cage. "Name's Dave. Won't say what pack he's from. That's all I could get from him." I looked at Venom. "That's it?" He nodded, shoving the rest of his sandwich down his gullet with one finger. I looked at the scraggly wolf, noticing his leg wound was nothing but a scab and the blooded bandage lay in shreds next to him. "Why did you attack Shadow?" I jutted my thumb over my shoulder. Sure, Shadow was here somewhere. No answer. He just stared at me. I nodded and ran my fingers over my chin. "All right. You want to play deaf mute? That's fine. You can spend another night in that cage. Is that what you want?" Still no response. Venom pulled his cell phone from his pocket and waved it at the wolf. "We filmed your transition back to human this morning. Maybe we'll put it on YouTube. You won't say what pack you're from, but when that shit goes viral, I'll bet they'll come looking for you. Maybe we'll even ask for a ransom." Dave's eyes went wide. "Code!" Venom chuckled. You think I give a shit about that, about the code? Look who I'll roll with. He pointed at me and then the other vampires who had gathered behind us to watch the interaction. "Filthy traitor," Dave growled. Answer the fucking question," I demanded. Dang, all these different voices. Shadow came to stand next to me. "Yeah, answer." Then he disappeared. Dave gasped, looking to where Shadow once was and then to me and Venom. "What the hell, man?" I shrugged casually. "He could be anywhere." "Vampire speed," Dave grunted. No, not vampire speed," Venom chuckled. "The fucker can literally disappear. Why do you think we call him Shadow?" "Boo." "Boo," Shadow said, appearing inside Dave's cage. Dave screamed. Shadow disappeared again, reappearing next to me. All the vamps behind me laughed. "Talk," I demanded again. "Fuck off," he said. I looked at Phoenix and nodded. With a flick of his wrist, he shot a stream of fire at the wolf, and it set his foot on fire. Dave screamed before he dumped his water bowl on it to extinguish it. "Asshole," he said. "Spit it out," I snapped. Okay, Dave replied, panting, but not taking his eyes off Phoenix. "Cedar Grove Pack sent me here to see what you bloodsuckers were up to." Wow, one zap of fire and he'd sung like a canary. Venom laughed. "Cedar Grove Pack? That bunch of mangy mutts." Dave spat at Venom, and the wad of spittle landed on his boot. "Fuck off, traitor!" Venom's smile dropped as he looked down at his boot. "You dick!" Annoyed, I said, "Keep talking." "We know you've been killing wolves, just trying to find out why," he glared at me. I glanced at my watch to check the date. Last night had been the third night of the full moon, and I was grateful he wasn't going to turn again while we had him. We needed answers. We killed. Oh, we killed. We killed rogue wolves who attack humans, Face pointed out. Dave looked at Face and then back at me. It doesn't matter. The pack wants penance for killing one of their own. You mean one of your own, Venom said, producing a candy bar from his pocket and unwrapping it before taking a bite. Did the guy ever stop eating? Let me out of here. I told you what you want to know, Dave said, now sounding scared and irritated. I looked at Venom and jerked my head toward Dave. Let him make a call. I want to meet with the pack leader. Venom took out his phone and tossed it at Dave. Start dialing. I walked away and headed toward my office. My men could handle the rest. Once the pack leader arrived, I would go out and make my presence known. Until then, I had paperwork to do. I'm shocked he even showed up, Venom said, staring at the large man seated inside the chapel. He stood about 6'4", his leather jacket reflecting the lights from above. He had tried to bring his whole posse inside, but I only allowed him one crony to accompany him. My 5 lieutenants... Nathan, just shush. My 5 lieutenants, Phoenix, Shadow, Venom, Kova, and Face, all stood by my side as we stared at the 2 wolves. You sent your little lapdog to spy on us. Why? I asked. You killed my lieutenant, the man said. A wad of dip. Oh, I'm going to do this right. You killed my lieutenant. I can't do that with my tongue. Put my gun there. You killed my lieutenant, the man said, and a wad of dip in his lower mouth. What's your name? Larry, he answered. This is Mick. He pointed to the wolf next to him. Nathan, am I getting it right here? These are Louisiana. These are Louisiana redneck werewolves. Damn, these fuckers were huge. Shadow was tall as well, standing at least 6'7", but he didn't have the bulky muscle mass these wolves did. I suppose morphing into animals once a month gave you some of their DNA. Listen, Larry, I stared. If we killed a wolf, it was for good reason. We don't just wander around looking for wolves to murder. Could have fooled me, Mick responded, glaring at us. He wasn't doing nothing wrong. I sighed. You'll have to be more specific. When did this happen? I wasn't sure why I was entertaining wolves or hearing their side of the story, because at the end of the day, I knew what we did here was on the up and up. We didn't kill wolves for the hell of it. We only did it when we were protecting our own or humans from them. And wolves weren't the only creatures we had killed either. There were a lot out there. Couple of months back, Larry said, using an empty glass to spit his water to chew into. I was sure Kova had offered them drinks, if not for any reason but to help them loosen up and talk. I rolled my hand, encouraging him to continue. Down by the cross, like one of you bloodsuckers took him out, he said. We all just stared at him. Definitely not enough information, because nothing was jogging my memory. But it did confirm there was a pack down near the lake. I took that little nugget away to chew on later. Minding his own business, chasing a squirrel. He was hungry, that was it. How do you know it was us? Shadow asked. Larry glared at him. Y'all shot him with a silver bullet. He came back to the lair bleeding from the stomach and reeking a vampire stench. Died within the hour. That's it? Phoenix laughed Lily. You automatically assume it was us? Who the fuck else was it? Larry asked, irritated by Phoenix's cavalier attitude. Well, it wasn't us. I looked at my men. Any of you recall this? They all shook their heads. No balls, Shadow replied. I looked at Larry. Well, you got the wrong vamps. You got other motorcycle riding vamps sleazing around Shreveport then? Larry asked facetiously. If they do, they ain't with us. If they do, they ain't with us, Phoenix replied. What is it you exactly do here? Larry asked, looking around the chapel. None of your fucking business, I replied. Just know that if you or any of your pups get out of line, we take them down. That's all you need to know. Now take your mutts and get the fuck out of my clubhouse. Larry and Mick glared at me. Today, Shadow said, walking toward them. They stood with hands up in surrender and walked out of the chapel and into the main clubhouse area of the warehouse. Kova unlocked Dave's cage and shoved him toward his wolf brothers. They left without incident. We watched them drive off in their pickup trucks, and then I shut and armed the door. Breaking my hand through my hair, I said, the sooner we get to New Orleans, the better. Kova snorted. Move over, trouble. More troubles are going to find us the minute we move in. I clapped him on the shoulder, looking into his sunglassed eyes. I know, brother, I know. All righty, that gets you the first 4 chapters of Viper, Nighthawks MC. What better can you ask for? You got motorcycle gangs, you got vampires, you got werewolves, and who else knows what's going to be in there? When CJ's writing it, that could be anything. Nathan, what do you know about jaguars? Vampires are awesome. All righty, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Miss CJ, thank you so much for letting me read this. I appreciate it. I have bought all the whole series out there because this is right up my alley, and I'm going to read the whole thing. I got a vacation coming up week after next, and by golly, it's in my Kindle, ready to read. All righty. Give that sexy husband, CJ, give that sexy husband of yours a hug for me, too. Oh, man, y'all, that dude's one delicious drink of water. Tall drink of water at that. And he knows how to use handcuffs and give some beatings. All righty, everybody. No, I'm not speaking from experience. He and CJ are both prison guards, and last I heard, I don't know if they retired or not, but yeah, last I heard they were prison guards. All righty. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. I'm hoping to get some of my computer stuff crap set up so that I will be a much happier person next week. And you guys can see me better too. So, all right. Have a great weekend. Y'all have fun. Happy reading.